Hello, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
Thanks for joining us today. This is our third edition, I think, right?
Third virtual learning edition.
Of Tune Supply's virtual learning initiative. And we're really excited today because we've got Anna Colliton on bodhrán, and she's going to be live teaching us in just a moment. Before we do that, I'll just give you some information, as I always do at the top here. If you look down in the description of this video, you'll see a bunch of links, including information about this program. You can also click over to Tune Supply and check out all the other cool stuff we're doing over there, including our roster of amazing artists. There's also a link to throw some money in the contribution box. This program is run entirely through contributions, and we, of course, pay our teachers for their time. So if you find this useful, head over there and put a few bucks in the box for Anna and to help us keep this going. We also have some upcoming teachers in the next week I just wanted to tell you about. On Monday, we've got Ben Power from Broadway's Come From Away teaching some flute tunes. That'll be Monday at 6 p.m. And next Friday, 1 week from right now, we've got James Yoshizawa teaching another bodhrán lesson. So if you're a bodhrán fan out there, which I bet all of you are, come back next week to hear from James. And I am going to be teaching a lesson tomorrow at 2 p.m. on the fiddle, but you guys probably aren't interested in that, but let your fiddle friends know about that. All of that information is over at the Tune Supply website if you have forgotten. Lastly, feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're trying to get 1,000 people so we can have a clean URL. And we also have a Facebook page and all that good social media stuff that you guys already know about. And let's see, I think that's about it.
Great.
Okay, so this is really exciting. Now, I just want to let you know before we go over to Anna, if anything does go wrong, we have a backup plan, which is a pre-record of Anna, and we will flip over to that if anything goes wrong. So just stick with us if there is a tech problem, but we're pretty sure this is going to go well today. So I think we're just about ready. We're going to head over to Anna live. Here we go.
Hello! Hi, friends. Nice to see you all. I was just having a look at your comments here, so looks like we've got some familiar faces in there, although, of course, I can't see you, which is a bit of a shame, so I hope everybody's keeping safe and well out there. Big thank you to Caitlin and Chris over at Tune Supply for all that they're doing. So, folks, I encourage you to go buy a banjo lesson from them for a needy child during this difficult time. So big thanks to them. So, I guess today what I'd like to talk about is something that I get a lot of questions about in workshops, and it's a little bit detailed in some ways and kind of something that there's not really a good, simple, short way to talk about it, which is single-ended ornamentation on the bodhrán. So we're basically talking about triplets and rolls, right? But only using one end of the stick, not both ends of the stick. So I'm sure you guys are all familiar with the double-ended kind. This is an introduction to the single-ended kind. And we've got 30 minutes, so this is absolutely not comprehensive. There are a million ways to do this, but I want to kind of give you guys, for those of you that have wanted to experiment with this or, learn a little bit more about how it works. Everybody has these kind of like muscle memory things that they do all the time, but if you want to develop some new stuff, really understanding what you're doing is super helpful as well. So this is going to function as kind of an intro to how to think about it and how to do it. And everybody has different ways of doing this. These are things that I'm going to show you today that I picked because I think they're kind of a cohesive unit. They work together and they make sense. They're easy to understand. And they're a good way to kind of address all the topics that we need to address to talk about this stuff. So let's begin at the beginning. Well, let me tell you what I'm going to do today, actually, as well. What we're going to do is we're going to cover 3 different topics. And we're going to, for each of those topics, you're going to get an exercise that you can go and, play repeatedly in your basement with a metronome until you get comfortable with it. And also, those exercises are designed to fit really nicely into actual tunes. So this is stuff that you can use practically in your regular musical life. Normally I say when you go to your local session, but obviously nobody's doing that right now. But when the world starts back up again, this is stuff that you can use practically. And these are not hard and fast rules that you have to do them this way. This is designed to be understandable, first and foremost. And then at that point, once you've got it, you can mess with it, add your own stuff to it, put it in a different place, do it a different way, whatever you want to do. So 3 topics, 3 exercises. We're probably going to go a little over a half an hour because when I timed this before, it's about a half an hour, but there will be comments. So I'm watching your comments over here. And it looks like Steve is being the class clown, so thanks, Steve. And yeah, so let's get started. So let's talk to begin just a little bit. I know I see some familiar names here. For some of you, this is going to be something you've already thought quite a lot about, but for those of you that haven't, or if you want to, help somebody else out along the way, there are a couple things that when you get into these kinds of really precise, nuanced movements are super important. And one is your stick, right? I just baked this stick in the oven a couple of weeks ago. It's a little bit heavy for me, but I tend to like to make my own sticks because I can experiment a little bit with weight and length. I'm never satisfied, so I'm always messing around. But the main thing is you don't want a stick, I don't care what you make it out of, but you don't want a stick that has big balls at the end or even little balls at the end or weights at the end. You don't want it to be heavy on the ends because that feels really nice when you're playing because it kind of plays itself and it gets this momentum, but it's really hard to control because in bodhrán playing, we have a downstroke and an upstroke at our disposal as well as, this end sometimes. And what we don't want is to make it so that gravity acts really strongly upon our downstroke by having a weight at the end of the stick, because then you're all the way down here, and coming back really quickly is difficult. If you do manage to come back really quickly, and it's not difficult, you're expending more energy than you want to be expending. You want to be relaxed so you can sound relaxed, because people who sound good, a large part of that is always sounding relaxed. You want to be able to have your body be relaxed, and having a big heavy stick is not going to help with that. So whatever you can do, this is barbecue skewers. If you want to go find a wooden spoon and chop the handle off, if you want to use a chopstick, there are so many things you can do. But no weights at the end of your stick. That's my hill to die on. That's not going to help you out. And I don't want you to hurt yourself either. I know a lot of musicians, virtually everybody gets some kind of repetitive stress injury at some point in their lives. And the further we can stay away from that, the better, okay? So that's one thing. And then the other thing, just checking your comments. Hi, friends. Made of spaghetti. Peter, yeah, sure, man. Whatever you want to do, I'm all for it. And then the other thing as well is your hand position. So there are a few different ways. Everybody's body is different. Everybody's stick is different. But what I don't want to see is I don't want to see a bent wrist, because this is really hard on your body. This muscle has to extend and stay extended all the time, which pulls on your tendons. And again, that will hurt you eventually. I have been there. I had to stop playing for a year, and then I had to readjust my entire position when I was about 19. It is not fun. I don't want you to have to go through that. So your wrist needs to be straight, and I want to see this twisting motion, right? If you have a bent wrist, you end up having to use all of this Easter ham, all this big meat, which is, it's heavy to move around. You might burn calories, but it's not going to be able to do fine motions. And also, it's just not designed for doing little stuff. It's just not that smart. So you want to be using your smaller muscles at the end of your arm. And then people have different grips. This is kind of the most common, this pencil grip. My grip, if I get any questions about it, is just like this, but I don't have fingers under it, so it really swings. If you want to try that, it'll take you a month to stop hitting yourself in the eye, but I just keep it really loose like that. But for most of you, it's going to be this, and that's fine. Some people put the stick a little farther back, that's fine too. The main thing is this turning a doorknob motion. You gotta have that, right? And other people play other ways, and it sounds great, but this is going to make it easier for you, and it's going to make it easier for your muscles as well. So that's my recommendation with that. So that's my spiel. And let's begin at the beginning. So the first most important thing that you have to be able to do to effectively use and manipulate single-ended ornamentation is you have to have a way to, after you've done some of these things, get yourself back to your regular sticking pattern. So generally speaking, at the most basic, we're talking about a downstroke followed by an upstroke all the time. Now, you're going to mess with that. We're going to add different sticking patterns in there and do loads of stuff. But you want to be able to control where your downstrokes and your upstrokes are. So let's talk about, as an analogy, let's talk about our old-fashioned friend, the double-ended triplet, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with, right? So that's this guy, down, top, up, right? I'm sure most of you guys know that. And what's great about that, and I'll never give it up, don't think that you can only do double-ended or single-ended triplets. You can do both interchangeably, I promise you. There's no reason you have to abandon what you've already been doing if you want to learn new stuff. Having good technique helps a lot with that, but you can definitely do both. So what's great about this triplet is that it starts on a downstroke and then it ends on an upstroke, so it just fits right in with down, up, down, up. We're just sticking this tiny little note in between, so say in a reel, it just happens totally naturally in there, and it doesn't mess you up. But if you start doing all of that with one end of the stick, then you can potentially find yourself in a situation where when you come back afterwards, what should be a downstroke is an upstroke. So we need to have a way around that. And there are different ways around that. One way is you can stop. You can take an eighth note rest and take a breath, and then come back in. And that's great. That works. That can have a lot of impact. That can sound really snazzy. But we don't want to be stuck with something we can't change. We want to have options. We want to be versatile. You know, music is a conversation. We want to be able to say what's appropriate, to be able to do whatever we want. So the easiest way to fix our sticking pattern, to get back to down, up, is by doing 2 downstrokes in a row. So that's this, down, down, right? Now, if you want to do 2 upstrokes in a row, you can do that too. There's no reason why not. It's harder, and it's, you know, maybe not the first thing that we should talk about. So the easiest, most obvious way is down, down. So just try that if you guys have your drums out. And what you want is you want the stick to be doing the work for you. See how it's swinging? And also, although you get 2 notes out of it, it should really be kind of more one motion. So I don't want to see you guys doing this, because you're not going to be able to do that up to speed, and it's going to be really, really hard on your shoulder and your arm and everything. So you want to kind of let the stick bounce, and this really fluid motion. And the looser you have your stick, the easier this will be. So this is really key, not only for single-ended ornamentation, but for a lot of you people. I know people get stuck at this point quite a lot. These are really common questions I get. This opens up a whole world of stuff you can do. So definitely, if you learn nothing else, if you have to go and eat dinner right now, learn this, okay? So that's how that works. If it's helpful to think about, some people will teach this not as 2 downstrokes, but as a tap and then a downstroke. So I always just shorthand for myself, think of it as 2 downstrokes, but if it's easier for you to think about it as a tap followed by a downstroke, you can, because that first note is actually kind of going a little bit horizontally at the skin, if you see. And then the second note follows through more of the way down. So if that's an easier way to think about it, by all means think about it that way, okay? So that's topic 1, is going to be 2 downstrokes in a row. Let's find a way to use that practically so we can get used to it, okay? So the easiest, and my favorite way to start talking about this is to start with a sticking pattern that's great in jigs. And a jig, a measure or a bar of a jig, is 6 eighth notes long. If you want to make those 6 eighth notes by doing 5 upstrokes and a downstroke, you can. Again, it's hard and it'll sound funny, but you can. If you want to do 2 downs, 2 ups, and 2 downs, you can. Somebody can do the math on how many different combinations there might be, and that's stuff that you're welcome to experiment with. I like this sticking pattern because it makes logical sense, it sounds nice, and also it is the same as what guitar and bouzouki players normally do in 6/8 when they strum. You know, their strings are obviously in order, so an upstroke isn't going to work for them on that 4. So they normally do this, all right? So what it is it's down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up. Some of you have seen this before, but this is a very essential thing to get into this stuff. So again, down, up, down, 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 down, up. I'm going to play that super slow. If you guys have your drums, feel free to jump in, and let's see if we can get some muscle memory going there, and then I'll give you an exercise with that to practice, and that also will fit with music to practice, and also you can take out to your local session when that happens. So I'm going to try this slow. If this is too fast, somebody give me a little shout out in the comments here. I can see you guys all talking trash in there. Nice to see you. Just like the pub. All right, so down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up. Hey, Lindsay. If you're stuck at work, turn your phone around so it's not the screen side. Just as somebody doing that the other day. And grab a pencil. Right? The other thing with this, so now, at this point, we have, just from this lesson, 2 different sticking patterns for 6/8 time. The first one is the one that I'm sure you're familiar with. Down, 2, 3, up, 2, 3, down, 2, 3, up, 2, 3, down, 2, 3, up, 2, 3. And now we've just introduced down, up, down, 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 down, up. You'll notice, too, they sound different, right? Because they're made differently or using different motions. So this is a great thing. We're going to learn to switch between the 2, and what you can do is you know, a lot of times, like, nobody tells the bodhrán player what's going on. Like, you know that it's going to be a different tune coming next, but you have no idea what it's going to be. And I always tell my classes, one of the most important things is that you have to look like you know what you're doing, even if you don't. And half the time, no one's going to tell you what's going on, so you got to fake it. So a really good way to look like you know what you're doing is just to do something different when the tune switches. You might not know what's coming. It might not be a band that you play with all the time. It might be a casual situation. And just pick something different and do it. And if it doesn't work, change it. But one really easy way to do that is to play the first tune or the first part, you know, wherever you want to change, one way, and then up, different pattern. And obviously mix and match, throw your other stuff in there. I'm not using my left hand at all, but you will be. And, you know, this has a really swingy feel, drinking tea with your granny, right? Nice and sweet, lovely. And then, you know, it's closing time at the pub. Everybody's going nuts, the session is flying, and then this is a little more driving, it's a little more rock and roll. So that's useful, and it becomes useful with your ornamentation later as well. So let's talk about a way to integrate that into your playing. So this is your exercise, topic 1, exercise 1, that will let you practice that. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a 4-bar pattern, so 4 bars, 4 measures, and the first 3, we're just going to do regular down, up, down, up, down, up. And then, oh no, I'm wrong. I'm sorry, I'm getting my exercises mixed up. The first 2, we're gonna do our regular down, up, down, up, down, up. And the second 2, we're gonna do down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up. And then we're gonna go back. So what this is gonna do is it's gonna teach you how to go from one to the other and back, which is super useful. You don't wanna get mixed up and have to stop and, you know, pretend like you needed to go to the bathroom just because you dropped your stick. So this teaches you how to do those transitions, okay? And it's 4 bars long, and in standard, you know, run-of-the-mill Irish tunes that all kind of have the same structure, not every single one, but many, you know, a bar obviously is 6/8 notes, but a part is going to be 16 bars long, and then you're going to play that twice through. I think that's right. I always forget. I'm not a numbers person. They fly right out of my head. So something that's 4 bars long fits very comfortably into that. So this is something you can play with music, and you're not going to have to stop short or adjust. It'll fit right in. So again, 2 bars, down 2, 3, up 2, 3. So twice through that. And then 2 bars, down, up, down, down, up, down. So twice through that. Okay, I'm going to play this super slow, and you guys join in if you want to. If you have questions about any of this stuff, those of you that have taken my classes before know that I just roll through loads of stuff really quick, and I normally have, you know, time for questions and for people to take videos and stuff and notation, but we don't have that at our disposal, so I'm just going to play it. But if you have questions, by all means, get on the comments. Tune Supply has my email. You can email me, find me on Facebook. I'm super bored. My husband's tired of talking about drum stuff, so I would love to hear from you, okay? So let's try that exercise, all right? So down 2, 3, up 2, 3, down 2, 3, up 2, 3, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, 2, 3, up 2, 3, down 2, 3, up 2, 3. A little faster. Cool. Good job, guys, I'm sure, if you were playing along. And also, that second pattern is really cool. I'm sure if you guys are doing certain kinds of syncopation in reels, you can use that there too. So that's why I always kind of start with that, because just really quickly, in reels, you know, a lot of times people will do, and this is a topic for another day, but instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, you might do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2 to make your 8 notes in a measure. You can do that with this new sticking pattern too. Those 3s you can do with those double downstrokes. So if you're going along in a reel, you can add those 3s in there too. Ooh, I'm gonna switch drums. This one sounds funky. So that's why I love to talk about that. And it opens up a world of stuff you can do, okay? So that was topic 1, exercise 1. Let's move on to topic 2. So topic 2, we're gonna use what we just learned, and we're gonna make a little single-ended triplet that will fit into a jig. Okay, we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna talk about it, we're gonna practice it a couple times, and then we're gonna get an exercise that is usable in the real world should it ever be available to us again. Oh, you guys are having fun! Awesome. I'm glad. All right. So what is a triplet? A triplet is 3 notes. And typically in Irish music, we play that in the space of 2 eighth notes. And it's 2 eighth notes with a little middle note in the middle without getting overly technical about it because we don't have time for that. So in our old-fashioned double-ended triplet, that's our 3 notes. And that's in the same amount of time as we'd be doing down, up normally. Make sense? So how do you make those 3 notes? Well, there are a million different ways. So this is why this can be an awkward thing to talk to large groups of people about, because there are just a million ways to do it. If you want to do a triplet that sounds like this, and you want to do 3 downstrokes, that's a triplet. If you want to do 3 upstrokes, that's a triplet. If you want to do 2 downstrokes and an upstroke, that's a triplet, as long as the timing is correct. So there are a bunch of different ways to do it, needless to say, and they do different things to that sticking pattern that we talked about in terms of how it fits in and what you need to do to write yourself afterwards. But the easiest way to think about it, just off the top of my head, is we're going to make that triplet, instead of double-ended, down, top, up, we're just going to make it down, up, down. So that little note in the middle is just going to be a little tiny upstroke, right? Just really fast. So those 3 notes can fit in anywhere that we have 2 eighth notes, anywhere we have down, up. So the way I'm going to do this, again, go play with this, put it somewhere else, experiment with where you want to put it or what you want to do with it. I'm going to put this in the middle of the bar. I'm going to put it in the middle of our 6 eighth notes. And what that's going to do is it's going to reverse our sticking pattern. So now we know how to come back from that. So I'll show you how that works, okay? So what the exercise is, just the bar that has the triplet, is going to be down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down. So that down, up, down in the middle is the triplet, okay? Now, you'll notice this measure starts on a downstroke and it ends on a downstroke. So you're going to be backwards. So we're going to have to fix that in a minute. But just the place where this triplet goes sounds like this. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Right? Oops. Okay, so that's how that works. Now, what do we do? Because the next logical stroke is going to be an upstroke, and that's going to be the first note of the next measure, so we don't want that to be an upstroke. And you guys can do absolutely whatever you want in your funky fusion bands, with your own stuff, whatever, but generally speaking, if it's the first note of a phrase or of a part, if it's on an upstroke, that better be because you want it that way and because it sounds awesome. Your job as an accompanist is to provide a floor for the melody players to play on top of. Your job is also to help the audience listen, to tell them where to clap, where to tap their foot. If you're constantly obscuring the one, that's going to be awkward to listen to. Again, not in all situations. Your creative license allows you to do all sorts of stuff, and I wouldn't want to stop you from that. But if you're just playing in a session and you're trying to be friendly and, do something that's easy for people to listen to, you're going to want to make sure that the notes that you want to be strong are going to be downstrokes. So let's put that into a longer pattern. This pattern, like the last one, like exercise 1, exercise 2 is 4 bars long. It also fits very nicely into standard jigs. So you can play it in your basement with a metronome, and then you can put on some music and try it. And I'm going to put on some music here so that you can hear how it sounds as well. So what we're going to do is we are going to do 3 bars this time of regular standard down 2 3 up 2 3 down 2 3 up 2 3 1 down 2 3 up 2 3 down 2 3 up 2 3 3 times of down 2 3 up 2 3. Now in real life you can do whatever you want there. That's just a placeholder to say this is the before part of the pattern, before the triplet happens. You can do whatever you feel like doing there. If you want to use your other sticking pattern or you're doing other kinds of crazy stuff, that's totally fine. But for the purposes of this exercise, we're just going to do it super, super simple. And then the last bar is what we just did. Down, up, down, up, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Sorry. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down. So then we're going to have to do the last note of that bar is a downstroke. The first note of the beginning of the pattern is a downstroke. So that's where our 2 downstrokes come in. And this way we can do a single-ended triplet without having to stop, right? Without being a slave to this thing. It is a slave to us. So that sounds like, I'm going to do the whole pattern. It's going to be down 2 3 up 2 3 down 2 3 up, 2, 3, down, 2, 3, up, 2, 3, down, 2, 3, up, 2, 3, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, down, 2, 3. Hard to talk and play. Here we go. You guys are funny. And this is going to fit great. It's 4 bars long. Right? So that's a singlet, a triplet, and those 2 downstrokes, so we don't have to stop. What's great about these exercises, too, that I'm giving you, I urge you to experiment, but one other question and something we all have to think about all the time is where do we do that? Where do we do stuff? Like, we know all this stuff, but where do we put it? Where's an appropriate place for it? And if you think about a tune like it's a conversation, it's a story, there's a bit of give and take, and it has this kind of narrative arc and all this fluffy stuff. Or it has a punchline, maybe it's a joke. Different things that you do rhythmically have different meanings, and oftentimes these little ornaments are great to kind of tie things together. So they're really nice at the ends of phrases. A lot of times tunes have 4-bar phrases in them, like a sentence. So they're really nice at the end of that. They're really nice at the ends of parts, or at the end of the tune when you're going into a different tune. So this, if you pop this in with a jig, is kind of gonna function like that. So it functions like, you're chatting away about whatever happened to you, and you went to the hardware store, and you can't believe what the guy said to you, and then you go, well, anyway, at the end of it. That's what this is. That's how this functions in this exercise. So that's a good way to start thinking about this stuff, where you put it. So I'm going to do that a couple more times, and then I'm going to put on some music so you guys can see where it fits. So it's not a total mystery how this works. So a couple times so you can get it in your head. All right? 1, 2, 3, down, up, down, down, up, down, down. 2, 3. Right? So again, looking at one of the comments here, that will fit between just the triplet, the down, up, down, will fit between any 2 eighth notes, provided you're starting on a downstroke. So you don't have to put it in the middle of the bar. You can put it at the beginning, you can put it at the end, you can put it in a different bar, you can put it any number of places. And also those 2 downstrokes, you don't have to put them there. You can wait a little while before putting those in, or you can even do them before. So this, I'm not going to explain to you all the massive number of possibilities you can have with this, but hopefully so you start to kind of understand how this stuff works together and start to play around with it. So I'm going to put on some music so you can see how this sounds. This is an album that I always use for teaching. It is not only lovely, it is reasonably paced, so it's not super fast, and it is my good friend Brenda Castles. It's her concertina album. Concertinas are great because you cannot drown them out. So when I've got 20 bodhráners in a class, concertina is the instrument for that. And yeah, also you guys should go and buy it. Bandcamp just today, I think they're doing it on the 1st of every month for the next couple months, has waived their cut, so they're not taking a cut. So if you buy CDs today, the artist gets all the money for it. So go and buy Brenda Castles' album on Bandcamp today. All right? So I'm going to let this start off, and then I'll come in. You can see how it sounds if you guys want to play along. It's going to sound bad because I'm just playing it on my phone into an iPad out through the air from the Bronx to you, so I apologize for that. But hopefully you can hear the structure of the tune. Here we go. Beautiful. I'm going to get to the end of this, and then I'm going to come in. Here we go. Drop is nice there. Come back strong with that last downstroke. All right, and good Good job, guys. The name of that album, I think it's called Indeedin' You Needn't Bother. I think that's what it's called. I actually don't have that on my phone. I believe that's the only album from Brenda on Bandcamp. Brenda Catskills. Lovely human, great concertina player. Okay? So, now we have topic 1, 2 downstrokes in a row, sometimes called double sticking. We know what it is. We have an exercise to practice it that also will fit nicely in a jig. Topic number 2, one of many different kinds of single-ended triplets that you can do in a jig. We know how it works, we know where to put it, and we have an exercise that is 4 bars long that will fit nicely into 90% of common Irish jigs. Thank you, Brian Casey. Oh, that man knows. So does Tune Supply. So topic 3, let's do the same thing with reels. Again, multitude of options, but for the sake of clarity, I'm just going to do the same. I'm going to do the same triplet, right? Why not? Anytime you have a downstroke and an upstroke that is 2 eighth notes, you can turn it into a triplet. So you could make a triplet that's down, down, up. You can make a triplet that's up, up, down. You can make it up, down, up, whatever you want. For simplicity, let's do the same triplet we just did, which is down, up, down, and let's figure out where it goes in reels. How are we doing on time? Almost there. Yeah, all right, so let's pop this bad boy into some reels. So if this were my class, I would put you on the spot and ask you questions, but you are all off in internet land, so I can't do that. So a measure of a reel, the same way we talked about jigs, is going to be 2 patterns of 4, right? It's 8 eighth notes. So in the most simple form, it's just going to be watermelon, watermelon. You guys probably all know this. So any number of places you can pop a triplet in there. The other thing, before I forget, the other thing about this stuff is that whereas with the double-ended triplet, that guy, we always had to put it somewhere that started with a downstroke. With single-ended triplets, you don't have to do that. It doesn't have to start with a downstroke. You can do one that starts on an upstroke. So that's the other reason that this super opens up your playing, and also that double sticking super opens up your playing, because you can do triplets in places that they wouldn't fit if you were just doing the double-ended kind. So that's another thing that's super cool about that. So yes. All right, so in our measure of a reel, which goes like this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little triplet right smack at the end of it. Just a little tiny triplet, down, up, down, pretty quick, right at the end of that measure. And again, because it's down, up, down, the measure starts with a downstroke and ends on a downstroke, so we're going to have to do 2 downstrokes in a row, or stop, or do something else. I'm not going to do all the explanation of the something else right now, but 2 downstrokes in a row to right ourselves so that the one where we want it can be strong and heavy if that's what we want. Again, do what you want with your funky fusion band. I will not judge you. I'm all for branching out and creative license, but for the purposes of this class, okay? So just what that measure is going to sound like is going to be down, 2, 3, 4, down, up, down, up, down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Questions about that? Anybody? You guys good? So, how do we fit this into a reel? This also, for the record as well, is really nice in hornpipes. In fact, I probably use it more in hornpipes than I do in reels. I'm sure I don't have to tell you guys that you can't do everything that you do in reels and hornpipes, or vice versa. But there are some things that translate. This is one. This is really nice in reels. It's really nice in marches as well. If you find yourself playing with like a fife band, or Kyle, you're out there, right? You know about that stuff. This could be really nice. It's really snappy. It sounds like some snare drum stuff you might hear. So can I do one just a touch slower? TJ, yes. So for this bit of it, which is just the last measure, there are no double downstrokes. It's just a down, up pattern. The double downstrokes will come in when we go back to the beginning of the pattern. So super slow, it sounds like down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. 8 eighth notes. And guys, this is going to be available on the Tune Supply channel after this is over, so you can roll back through it if there's anything you missed. Also, again, call me. I'm bored. Right? So what's going to happen there is when you go back to the next beginning of the next bar or the beginning of the pattern that we're going to put together, it's going to start on the downstroke. So that's where your 2 downstrokes are going to be. So really, the triplet is going to be followed by another downstroke. So really what you need to practice is down, up, down, down. That's all the hard stuff in one place. Yeah, totally. You can pop this in lots of different places. It's very, in terms of what I normally play, I found this to be like a little bit angular, more than something I'd want to play all the time. Like this is very snappy. So it's really for things that you want to sound snappy, but it also makes a really nice transition at the end of a part to go, well, anyway, back into the beginning. Okay, so let's put our 4-bar pattern together. We're going to do the same thing we did with jigs. We're going to do 3 bars of super simple. I'm just going to do, not even with the left hand, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, second bar, third bar. That's 3 bars. In real life, you might be doing all kinds of funky stuff here. That's fine. But just as a placeholder, we're going to keep that part simple. And then the last measure is going to be what we just did, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, down, up, down. Right? So 3 bars of 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1. Harsh talk and play. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And if you want to use your left hand there, that's fun. Right? Three, 4. Right? So you hear how it's like got this driving, goes back in, and then when you do those 2 downstrokes, the first downstroke of the 2 is the very last note of the triplet, which is the very last note of the pattern, and then the second downstroke of the 2 is the very first note of the pattern. So that, if you play this with music, will end up being oftentimes a very strong, important beat, so you're probably going to want to hit that with a downstroke. So you've got this little do going back into the tune, which sounds super cool, I think, right? Also, good in hornpipes, good in marches. Play with it. It is fun. I'm going to show you how that sounds with music. And this is, anybody who's taken my classes before will recognize this because I use it all the time. This is again from Brenda's album, Brenda Castles, Find Her. And there's a beautiful guitar intro that we're going to have to sit through. It is 8 measures long. So we're going to come in right after that, and we're going to play that 4-bar pattern. And the last bar of that pattern is the one that includes our triplet right at the end, and that's going to take us back into our pattern. And you'll see how it fits in. And I want you guys to experiment with this and, have a good time. Beautiful. Here we go. And here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nice, Brenda. Beautiful. All right. Good stuff, guys. So does that make sense, how to fit that in there? Again, you could put it, because we know now how to get back to our regular sticking pattern without having to stop. Put it in the first 2 notes of a measure, put it in the middle 2 notes of a measure, put it at the end of a measure. Then once you've done that, experiment with where you want to put those 2 downstrokes. You can go on a little bit longer, in a reversed up-down pattern and put in the 2 downstrokes later. You cannot do 2 downstrokes and do 2 upstrokes instead. There's a lot of stuff you can do. I don't teach the 2 upstrokes because honestly I don't use it much, and it's hard to do. But that's absolutely a way you can do it. You could do even more downstrokes or upstrokes that would then put you back into that pattern or not. So it's all this kind of like a little bit mathy, technical stuff that you have to think about in terms of how it works. But just because there are so many ways to do it, you can learn really specific things, and we did a couple really specific things today. But also, once you understand the structure of it and, you know, kind of just the various parts that go into it and maybe why you've had trouble with it when you've tried it in the past, then when you see somebody doing something super cool and you don't know what it is, you'll have the tools to look at that and figure out how to do something like that yourself. And again, there are 100,000 ways to do stuff like this. It's not always in exactly that timing either. There are different kinds of rolls you can do that are in different timing. But the struggle of the sticking pattern is a constant thing you have to think about when doing stuff like this if you don't want to take a break. So that is my class for you. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm going to hang out for a sec. If anybody has any other questions on the comments, because there's a bit of a lag, I'm maybe going to sit here for about 3 minutes and have a sip of my limeade, if you guys have questions. And then, yeah, feel free to reach out to me. Huge thanks, Caitlin and Chris. Buy stuff from Tune Supply. Those guys are awesome. Go buy Brenda's album. Call me if you want lessons or just talk shop. You know where I am. And, yeah, what do we got here? Somebody loves the symmetry. Who's that? Oh, is that Lindsay? Cool. TJ thinks it's wicked. You're sweet, TJ. I think you're wicked. All right, that's good. I'll, oh, Brian loves the tipper. I'll catch up with you guys in the comments, okay? Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. Be safe. See you soon in the real world, I hope.
Woohoo!
All right. That was fantastic.
Nice job, Anna.
So good.
Thanks for sticking around, everyone. This video will be available as a normal YouTube video as soon as we stop the live stream, so you can come back and watch it again if you like. If this was valuable to you, please throw a few bucks into the contribution box. The link is in the comments and also in the description. Your dollars help us keep this going. We can't keep it going without you because we obviously pay our teachers, and so please throw a few bucks in if you can. Just a reminder, we have Ben Power coming up on Monday with some flute tunes, and on next Friday we have James Yoshizawa with another bodhrán lesson, so you might want to stop by for that. And lastly, I'm sure a lot of you know this already, but we run a virtual session on Mondays and Thursdays on this channel. It's become pretty fun. It's always very silly, and we'd love to see you for that as well if you're able, and if you like playing tunes and aren't able to during these shutdowns. So I think that's it. Yeah.
I think so.
Thanks for joining us for this 3rd edition, and we will look forward to seeing you again very shortly. Have a great weekend.